everybody, happy Saturday. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the gut microbiome and how do we improve that. So how do we optimize our gut health? So I'll let you guys start coming on. Yeah, it is insane. How many? Hello everybody, hi. Today we're talking about the gut microbiome. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some new information. Hi, for craft's sake. Hi everybody, hi Janie. Having a little bit of mushroom coffee here. And we're going to talk about our gut. We're going to talk about our gut because gut health is tied to so many different things. I want to show you this little diagram. There are trillions, capital T, trillions, hi Germany. There are trillions of gut microbiomes that live inside of us. There's a lot of people that say we're more microorganisms than we are the big organism, and that's the one that's most important, and there's a lot of truth to that. So I wanted to just kind of talk about that a little bit. First of all, I want to just talk about, like, what is it? What is the gut microbiome, right? We hear this word all the time. It's a hot new buzzword, but it really kind of started getting momentum in the 70s with a lot of different research that was going on. So the microbiome is a complex community of trillions, literally trillions of little microscopic organisms that play a key role in our health. So they're not just in our gut, they're all over. They're in our liver, our mouth or esophagus, our stomach, our pancreas, the large intestines, which has the most of them, the colon, the rectum, the small intestines, gallbladder, liver. They're on our skin. They are everywhere, right? We have to become friends with our bugs because they are what's going to keep us healthy. So they're not just in our gut, like I said, they're all over, and they're super dense in the colon. So most of them are right here in the large intestines in the colon, and it is said that they make up 30% of fecal matter. So when you go poop, everybody poops, when you go poop, 30% of the fecal matter is microbial bugs that pass through us. Amazing, right? And it's not just bacteria. It's fungus, it's viruses, it's bacteria. It's all that work together as one unit in unison to kind of help keep us healthy. So it's really interesting, the prey and predator that happens inside of us. There's bugs that are killing other bugs all the time. There are predators, there are prey, and then there are those that work in unison to help us stay healthy. It seems like, you know, for most people, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to take a probiotic, screw it, and just let things happen where they may. Let the bugs kind of populate and do whatever they're going to do. But I'm telling you, it is tied to so many different health concerns that this is really something that you need to pay a little bit more attention to. And that's what we're doing this morning. We're paying a little bit more attention to the gut bugs and the bugs on our body that are going to help with our overall health. So why is it so important? And I think that part of what I try to do here on these Saturdays is to explain the why. Because if I can explain the why and the how, you're going to be far more likely to implement the healthy lifestyle hacks that we're going to talk about. Because I'm going to give you some actionable tools to help diversify your gut microbiome, to help repopulate your gut microbiome, to help you achieve optimal health. And we're going to go over those tools towards the end. But first, I just want to explain to you, like, why it's so important. It influences your health in more ways than you would possibly imagine. It influences our mood. And I'm going to talk about some of the fecal transplants that they've done. Fecal transplants is when they literally take poop from one person and they put it in the colon of another person. They populate it in the colon. And the research that is coming out now is showing that there are so many things in terms of, like, everything from your weight. If you are overweight, if you have struggled your whole life to lose weight. Somebody just said, is that an Aura ring? Yeah, I have an Aura ring. This is an Aura ring. Sorry, I was thinking about the ring light. But yeah, there's just a ton of different research that's coming out on how it affects your mood. So that vagus nerve from our gut to our brain is super, super strong. It affects your weight. So if you have an inability to lose weight, no matter if you've changed your diet or not, you could be missing a certain bacteria in your gut that is preventing you from losing weight. And when they're doing these research and they're literally looking at people's poop and figuring out which microbiomes are in obese people and which are lacking, there are certain microbiome species that are lacking in overweight people. And so sometimes it's as simple as repopulating that, which seems simple, right? You just throw a few bugs in there. It's a little bit more difficult than that. But by repopulating the microbiome in people who are obese, they can all of a sudden start losing weight. So, I mean, fascinating research that's coming out right now. But it's tied to all different kinds of stuff, not just weight, but all diseases, the immune system, depression and anxiety, sugar cravings, because your bugs in your gut can be the things that are telling you, I want that cookie, I want that candy, I want that. It's not just your brain. You've got your second brain here, which is in your gut, which plays a big role in your food cravings. Everything from like even autism, stress, food allergies, cancer, obesity. 42% of the population in the US is obese. 42%. Yet when you look at the stool samples of people that are obese, typically across the board, they're lacking a certain bacteria in their gut that is causing them to hold on to weight. Insane. Diabetes, 11% of our population is diabetic. Hypertension, adults, 47% of adults have hypertension. And so it's just amazing what the gut and how the gut can influence that. So the gut is considered to be now the second brain. That gut-brain axis refers to that amazing connection that we have between the gut microbia, and that's the little bugs that are living in there, and the whole nervous system. So there are signals that are sent via neurotransmitters to and from the gut. And the biggest one is serotonin. And that is kind of like that feel-good hormone that happens. You know, we get those kind of surge of like, oh, I feel good. That is a signal that's coming from the gut to our brain. So just in terms of digestion alone, it begins in our mouth, right? Digestion begins in our mouth, goes into our esophagus, into our stomach. Our stomach, if you look at the way the stomach is positioned, our stomach is on our left side and our liver is on our right. So our stomach is more over here than it is here. And if you look at it, you'll see that the top of it, where the esophagus empties out into the stomach, there is a little bit of an air bubble here that's always in the top of your stomach. So if you ever have like stomach where you're like, oh, I feel like I've got gas trapped inside my stomach, all you've got to do is lay over to your left and that air bubble will come right out. Does that make sense? That's just the anatomy of how our stomach is. There's a little air bubble on the top. So if you feel like I got gas stuck in there, turn over to your left and that bubble will come out your mouth and you'll have like a little bit of a burp. But that is an indication. If you eat certain foods and it always makes you gassy, or you're like, oh, I have this pain here, or I feel like I need to burp, or I get this indigestion, it's an indication that your microbiome could be off and you don't necessarily have those good bugs in your gut that can help you digest that food. And so it turns into like gas and different things that then cause a little bit of distress. So that's one of the things I want you to be aware of. If every time you eat, you feel overly full right afterwards, or you've got gas, or you feel like a little bit nauseous, this is a red flag, you guys. It is a red flag. I want you guys to really be in tune with your body. Anytime that you feel any discomfort, and I work with this, somebody just said, I struggle with heartburn. What are your thoughts on this? It's all related. So yes, there are different physical abnormalities that can happen in the whole system that will stop, you know, the acid will just come up and you could be having some anatomical situations that are happening. But that said, there is acid reflux that can be associated with an unhealthy microbiome as well. So we're going to get to all of that, but it begins in the mouth. Digestion begins in the mouth, down the esophagus, your stomach's on the left-hand side, and then we've got the small intestines and we've got the large intestines, the colon and the butthole, the rectum. That's like what happens in terms of the tube of the organ of digestion. And it deserves our respect. We've got a lot of, there's a lot of guilt and shame around digestion. You know, if we have to burp, or we have to pass gas, or our stomach gurgles, or, you know, our poop in general, you know, there's just a lot of shame and stuff behind that. But it is a fascinating organ and a fascinating system that tells a lot about our health. So not only does it tell a lot about our health, but in manipulating it, we can achieve more optimal health. I'm going to get into that. Okay, so where does the microbiome come from, first of all? Where does it come from? It starts at birth. At birth. So if you were somebody that said, I was just reading at the same time, sorry. But if you were somebody that had a C-section, if you gave birth to a C-section, your babies are lacking all of that microbiome that happens as they travel down the vaginal canal and as they come out of your vagina, right? When they come out of your vagina, which is right close to your butt for a woman, that there's a population that happens, and that's the first time that these healthy bacteria and viruses and fungi and all of that stuff that make up a microbiome is, you know, has its first take on this infant. So if you have had a vaginal birth, your microbiome is very, very different than the same baby that had a C-section birth, because you're literally taking the baby from a sterile cavity, which is, you know, in the uterus, and taking it out into the world, and it's not passing through the vaginal canal and all of that whole other anatomy that will populate the infant's microbiome. So that said, the first from birth to 1 year is super, super important. Isn't that interesting for craft's sake? And you know what they're doing now really great hospitals are doing now? When a baby is born C-section these days in a really good hospital, as opposed to like just wrapping the baby up and making it sterile and giving it into the mother's arms, sometimes they will take some of the fluids from the vaginal canal and rub them on the baby, put the baby skin to skin, because all of this is super important in populating that child's microbiome. And if that child does not have a diverse microbiome, they are setting themselves up, not that they have anything to do with it, but they are being set up to not have optimal health in terms of what the foods that they can eat, different diseases that can happen, a lot of different stuff can happen in that. So it starts with that, but it's also influenced by our life. I grew up on farms, so I was barefoot, I was outside, I was in the dirt. My microbiome looks very, very differently than somebody who grew up in New York City, for example, right? If you have animals, your microbiome is influenced by that. When was the last time your dog licked you on the mouth? Mine was probably this morning. I mean, not intentionally. I'm not one of those that just gets all up there in my dog's face, usually. But that said, if you have animals, if you're exposed to animals, if animals sleep at the foot of your bed or under your covers or on your pillow, or you're always hugging and kissing on your animals, your microbiome is being influenced. So all of that stuff, if you've got siblings, right? If you are homeschooled, or if you go to school with all of your peers, if you spend a lot of time outdoors, if you're barefoot a lot, all of that stuff, if you're in an overly sterilized environment. So, the whole antibacterial movement, it has its place, especially when we're, dealing with things like, there's some serious bugs out there that can really hurt you. And so having a wherewithal of like, is it time to be completely disinfected, or is this not the time? If you go to an airport or you're on a subway and you're touching everything and people are sick, that might be a time to come home and shower and do an antibacterial thing like that. But if you're sitting outside in the garden, that is not the time that you want to come indoors and immediately wash your hands and sterilize everything, right? Because we want all of those good bugs as well. So our industrialized microbiome, that's what it's now being called, is not good. And if you just look in the rise of like gut-related health issues that are happening in this world, you can see that our microbiome is becoming, there are vast numbers of them, species of them that are becoming extinct in us. And they're not becoming as diversified as they were back in our past when we were hunters and gatherers. And the reason is because hunters and gatherers, let's just think of it, there's still populations today that are hunters and gatherers. So I don't mean only in our past, but you know, for most of the population has become more industrialized. That said, in our past, when we were only hunters and gatherers, so you know, in our caveman days, those type, when you look at like anthropology or the studies that are coming out, they are guessing, just even based on current populations that are still hunter-gatherers, that there's like 100 to 150 grams of fiber from plants that are being eaten as a hunter and gatherer. But now that we are more industrialized and we're stripping our foods of everything and then adding more stuff in, it's led to a less diverse microbiome compared to non-industrial types of people. That said, rubber-soled shoes. I talk about this a lot when I talk about grounding, you know, getting outside and getting your shoes off and getting your feet touching the earth, the way that energy exchange happens. And oftentimes now, because of the invention of rubber-soled shoes, people are going decades, that might be an exaggeration, years, without actually touching the earth. And so not only is that with our stress level and with that energy exchange between the earth and human, but it's also really kind of limiting the amount and the diversity of our good bacteria that we have in our gut. Does that make sense? So antibiotics, they just wipe out, they can literally decimate whole populations. And I don't know about you, but when we were growing up, like, there are times when I felt like, wow, they're just like giving out antibiotics like candy. It doesn't even have to be a bacterial infection. It could just be like, I have a sniffle, I have a cold, I have a sore throat. Let's stick you on an antibiotic just in case. That is like the worst thing that you can possibly do to your gut, because all of those good bacteria that are working to help you digest your food, to help you send signals of like euphoria and good mood to your brain, like all of that stuff, the things that are helping us to stave off, you know, inflammation and to kind of dampen that inflammation and really help the whole system work well, is just becoming less and less and less with antibacterial soaps, with the antibiotics that they're prescribing, disinfecting household cleaners. There's hundreds and hundreds of species in our guts that have become extinct, and it's the ultra-processed foods as well. So some of the studies of our SAD American diet, you know, the standard American diet, SAD, it's just sad because it is a sad American diet. They have said that it's about 60% processed food, ultra-processed food, 60% ultra-processed food. And so what happens with that is just sugars and chemicals. You guys, we're eating a ton of sugars and chemicals. And let me just tell you what happens when you eat processed food. That processed food gets taken up, and I've talked about this a lot when I talk about fiber, right? Fiber slows down the way that the glucose gets pulled through your small intestines, you know, making it far less likely to be stored as fat. And so I talk about things like fiber supplements, like my Fiber Lean. You can DM me supplements and I'll send you the link. Don't do it here, but if you DM me, or once I post this to my main feed, just comment the word supplements and it'll send you a link to your DMs. So I talk about adding fiber into your diet and how that helps with the ultra processed food, because what it does is it creates a mesh in the small intestines so that when you digest that food and it gets down to the small intestines, it slows down the way the sugar is pulled through the intestines, making it far less likely to be stored as fat, okay? That's a metabolic health. But when you're talking about microbes that are primarily living in your large intestines, when you're eating processed food, ultra processed foods, sugars, carbs, starchy carbs, things like that, the rate of when that the glucose is pulled through, when is that digested? It's in the first little part of the small intestines. So think about that. We've pulverized our food, we've broken it down, we've ultra processed it, we ingest it, and it doesn't make it to the large intestines, because the majority of it right away in the first few minutes of eating it, that gets pulled through the small intestines, not the food particles obviously, but it's already processed. So you can extract the glucose out of that a lot easier, a lot quicker. It doesn't have the fiber that slowly travels down and still remains part of a piece of fiber, a part of something. No, it's because it's all broken down in the small intestines is when all of that food gets pulled through the small intestines. So what does that do to the microbiome that live in your large intestines? They starve. You want to starve the microbiome in your gut? Eat a ton of processed food, because the nutrients are not getting all the way down here to be able to populate them. And not only to not be able to populate them, like if you're eating fermented food and things like that, it'll populate, or you're taking things like a probiotic, like my Probiotic Lean. And remember, I talked about like obese people or people that have trouble losing weight, that they are lacking a certain bacteria in their colon. That's what we have figured out. Guess what this one has? That certain bacteria. And so that we can talk about that later, or you can just DM me the word supplements. But if you're eating processed food, all of that is getting pulled through, and there's very little fiber and stuff that gets taken all the way to the colon, where the majority of those microbes are living, okay? So in terms of the microbiome, 99% of the bacteria that is in our body is not harmful, and some of it can actually help. So we can't digest certain things on our own. We depend on those microbiomes. It helps with our immune system. It quiets inflammation. And 70% of our immune system is in our gut. 70% of our immune system is in our gut. I think that's just fascinating. They shape the hormones. They actually help with the hormones that tell us if we're full or not. And so there's a lot that can be, we can find out just by looking at our gut and making sure that our gut is optimally healthy. It really makes your whole body just kind of fall in suit. Dysbiosis is when your gut is not good. Something else is going on. So it could be small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which is SIBO. Could be a lot of different stuff. But what makes a healthy microbiome? Everybody is different. Like I said, I grew up on a farm, so my microbiome is going to be very different than somebody who did not grow up in my environment. Remember, environment plays a role. Our pets play a role. Our exposure to different things play a role. The foods we eat play a different role. So somebody that lives in Japan that's eating a lot of fermented food and a lot of predominantly fruits and vegetables is going to have a different microbiome than somebody that lives in America who's eating fast food once a day. Completely different, just completely different. So how do we make it where we can optimize this? And there's like a lot of different studies now that have come out where they're actually trying to figure out the sequencing of the gut microbiome and what type of bacteria or what type of microbiome is, or microbe, what type of microbe is associated with different types of diseases. So that's what is happening right now. It's pretty amazing. And like I said before, when we were talking about like from an anthropological point of view, like when we were cavemen, we were getting like 100 to 150 grams of fiber in various types of plants, because you go out to try to hunt something if you're a hunter and gatherer, and it's like a 20% success rate. So the majority of the food was coming from nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables and things that they could gather, and occasionally small amounts of meat. So processed food, like I said, is absolutely terrible for you because of the way in which our body takes that food up, as opposed to having it travel slowly down to the colon, where the majority of our microbiome, our microbes live, right? And so a lot of this has to do with our lack of eating enough fruits and vegetables every day. It could be really that simple, to where we've switched to a predominantly 60% processed foods in our life, from what used to be 0% processed foods. Now we're at 60% processed foods, and the first thing that goes are plants, right? That's the first thing that goes, plants. You can process a lot of different stuff, but when it's the first thing to go is like a piece of broccoli or a celery or a carrot. That's like the first thing that goes out, because it's not as enjoyable sometimes. It doesn't have the same kind of effect on our body. We've got the bad little bugs in our stomach too, that, they get that bit of sugar and they're like, more, please give me more. And so your cravings go a little bit crazy, right? So we need a few grams of fiber every day to feed our microbiome, those little microbials in there. And the average American, though, however, gets 15 grams of fiber only per day, and the RDA recommends about 28 to 40. So about 28 to 40 grams of fiber from fruits and vegetables, from nuts and seeds, from plants. Because guess what? Fiber's not in meat. Collagen is in meat. Collagen is that structural support in all animals, right? That collagen is like, helps make that scaffolding. In plants, it's fiber. So we need fiber to get down to feed those microbes. The microbes do not eat meat. They just don't. They eat plants, and they eat the fiber in the plants. And what makes it down to the colon is that fiber. So I've talked about like the high protein diet fad that we're on. If people can just switch from thinking about how many grams of protein do I get in a day to how many grams of fiber do I get from a multitude of various types of plants, you're going to be so much healthier. So when we look at the fiber, and listen, I get over 50 grams of fiber per day. I eat, like, if you guys have seen those live shows that I've done on like what I eat in a day, you know that I have done intermittent fasting for 30 plus years. I break my fast with a mushroom coffee because I've just done autophagy, right? I've picked apart those damaged cells in the damaged proteins in my body and in my brain, and I picked those apart and I'm throwing away the bad ones, reutilize the other ones. So I want to make sure that I'm putting a nice plant-based source into my brain, into my body, to give me those sort of nutrients. So I like to break my fast with a mushroom coffee, but then I eat as many vegetables as I can get in my body, right? So big, diverse amount of vegetables. I would say in any given lunch, I have at least 5 types of vegetables. So whether that's in a stir fry, or whether that's in a soup, or whether that's in maybe a couple of different types of vegetables, but then this lives on my countertop. So in any given day, I'm having at least 5 different types of nuts or seeds. So as diverse as you can get it and as many as you can get in, if you start your day that way, and I often in my coaching tell people, do it first thing. The first thing that you put into your body is the most important. First of all, because you've been deprived and it's going to suck it up like a sponge. But that said, it sets the tone of your whole day in terms of your microbiome, in terms of your health, in terms of your cravings, in terms of that glucose crash, right? So if you look at like white rice, has 0.6 grams of fiber. It's not a lot. Guess how many a steak has? 0. Chicken, 0. McDonald's hamburger, 0, unless you're counting the little wilted lettuce or a pickle on there. What nuts and seeds are on the tray? Right, today I've got, this is all, so I have raw almonds, raw walnuts, almonds, I have pistachios over here, I've got peanuts, I have cashews, and I have some pumpkin seeds. That's like every day. And then I'll sometimes add, I had cashews in there last, a couple days ago. So, but if you're just looking at like in terms of the content of fiber, if you have 1 cup of carrots, it's 3.1 grams of fiber. Remember, you're aiming for, the RDA is between 28 and 40. Average American gets 15 grams of fiber. 28 to 40 is your goal. I'm more like around 50 plus grams of fiber a day. 1 cup of carrots is 3.1 grams. A cup of spinach is 4.3 grams of fiber. A cup of broccoli, 5 grams of fiber. An avocado, 10 grams of fiber. I always have avocados here. A cup of almonds. A cup of almonds. Now, I'll probably have a half a cup of almonds, but a cup of almonds, 16 grams of fiber in a cup of almonds. So if you just eat more plants, you can get there. 1 cup of beans, 16 grams of fiber. Smoothies do not count, Lisa, and I was going to get into that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Smoothies, if you're making a smoothie and you're keeping all the fiber in there, yes, it counts in terms of being able to feed your microbiome, but it's always better to eat it raw, to eat it without pulverizing it. Juicing does not feed your microbiome. You guys, juicing, listen, and I know there's a lot of celery juicers out there. Not the best thing you can do for your health. I'm sorry, but I think a cup of celery juice, if I'm not mistaken, has 8 grams of sugar in it. Sugar is sugar is sugar. And if you're taking the fiber out, guess where it gets digested? Really up here, the beginning little section, beginning part of your small intestines. If you ate a stalk of celery, it's getting digested down in here. It could be slower, just a little bit at a time. You pull the stuff out, feed your microbes, feed your microbes, feed your microbes until it comes out your butt. That's if you're eating a celery stick. That is the difference. That's the difference. So juicing, I would say, I don't ever juice anything. I really don't. It's very, very, very rare. I will eat something or I will put it in like a NutriBullet, but I will not juice anything because it doesn't make any sense. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your whole metabolism. Oh, I'm gonna have a lot of people give me shit for that, but that is the truth. That's the truth. Okay, so let's just keep going. So what happens, I just said you need between 25, I think it was 28 to 40 grams of fiber per day to feed your microbiome. What happens if you don't get enough? There are instances where your microbiome, those little microbes in your gut, will start eating the lining of the intestines. So the lining of the intestines, there's like a mucus wall that lines the intestines. And it's semi-permeable, which means it allows some things to go through, right? And then other things to not go through. And this is what happens with our microbes in our gut. The wall of the intestines is semi-permeable, so it allows nutrients and for us to extract like all of the water that we need, all of that stuff. but it keeps the microbes in their place. It's kind of like, did you ever play Red Rover, Red Rover? When you, you know, you hold hands with all your friends and you're like, Red Rover, send Amy right over. And then your friend bolts from across the lawn and they try to break through that barrier. Am I the only one who played Red Rover, Red Rover? But that's kind of like those cells in the lining of your intestines. They're holding strong and they're holding there. They can still let things pass through, but you really have to break through that. And here's the thing, when you don't get enough fiber, those microbes begin eating. There's certain microbes that love to eat the lining, the mucus lining. And when that happens, those good bugs that had their place, they knew exactly where they were going to go. Well, the microbes eat the lining when you fast. This is why yes, that's absolutely yes. And so there are certain ways that I would say are an effective way to fast. I've been intermittent fasting for 30 plus years. But when you're doing a long fast or you're doing like a juice cleanse, I'm completely against juice cleanses. So let's think about that. Why is that? All of the nutrients are going to get taken up in the very beginning part of your intestines when you're doing a juice cleanse. And yeah, it's going to cleanse it's going to cleanse your colon for sure, because you're starving the microbes in there. You're not giving them any fiber to eat. So yeah, when you do fasting for too long, you can hurt your microbes in your stomach. You can also help them because it can starve the bad ones. It just really depends. But long-term fasting, it can be great for you in terms of autophagy. And again, you want to speak to your doctor. But juice cleanses, no way. There's no way that I would recommend a juice cleanse. Okay, so that said, if there's enough fiber in your gut, if there's not enough fiber, the microbes will begin eating that whole mucus lining, and then it's like they get everywhere. And that's when you start getting those kind of, acid reflux, upset stomach. Here's the signs of an unhealthy gut. Frequent stomach upsets, flatulent episodes, mucus-filled stool and gas, persistent nausea and vomiting, chronic fatigue, unexplained weight loss or gain, skin problems, rashes, allergies, frequent headaches, intense food cravings, and food allergies. These are all signs that you do not have a properly functioning microbiome. So if you have any of those symptoms, listen, we can mask all of this in certain ways, right? You can take a bunch of different over-the-counter stuff. I've got stuff that helps with digestion. I've got a product called Easy Digest for people that like every time when they eat, they feel bloated. So I've got that kind of product. We have probiotics. We have all of that stuff. But instead of just throwing something at it to like stop the actual symptom, you need to be treating the actual cause, which is in our gut. It's really kind of focusing on our gut health. Okay. So IBS, gurgling, inflammatory diseases, SIBO, all of this stuff, reintroducing fiber. When you start reintroducing fiber, start slow. For those of you guys who do not eat a ton of fresh fruits and vegetables like I do, I mean, it's pretty intense what I eat for my first meal in terms of the diversity of what I'm eating. But I have to say, you guys, it's going to make a big difference, but you have to start slowly. Because if you're not used to fiber and all of a sudden you're like, well, Darnell said I have to get up to like 50 grams of fiber a day, you might be miserable if you don't start slowly. So my suggestion would be to start with your first meal of the day, making sure that you're having fresh vegetables, maybe some fruits afterwards, but fresh vegetables, a variety of them, and start slow. So it might not be in your best interest to have 50 different kinds of vegetables in 1 week. You'll have to add them in slowly, or else some of this will happen. You'll have some upsetness in your tummy, in your whole system might be a little bit off because your body's not used to it and you don't have the microbes that are going to help you digest them. So you want to start slow. Have you ever had like a probiotic and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't feel good at all after that? Pay attention to that kind of stuff. You ever had like some sort of like a broccoli beef or something at a Chinese restaurant, and let's assume it was healthy and it didn't have MSG in it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that gives me gas. That's not good. This is your body speaking to you. We got to start listening, everybody. We got to start listening. But I want to tell you this very interesting thing, and then I'm going to get into some tools that's going to help. I started a little bit late today, so I still got a little bit of time. But they've done these twin studies, which I think is like so interesting, and this will just kind of let you know like how the whole body is connected is fascinating. They've done these twin studies where they've done these fecal transplants. Jeff Gordon was one of the persons who was doing this, but they'll take these fecal transplants and they'll take fecal matter from a healthy person and put it into an unhealthy person. This has been done in mice for a very long time, but there was actually like not a very long time, but for years they've been doing this and trying to see, will the microbiome of a healthy mouse help with the weight loss of an obese mouse if you do a fecal transplant there? And the answer is yes, which is shocking, which just goes to show you that they're onto something. That when you're looking at somebody, listen, obesity and weight management, it's so complex. And there's so many different avenues which influence that. So I don't want to say this is the only thing that influences that, but it is a thing that influences that. Because if you can take a healthy mouse stool, fecal matter, and transplant it into an obese mouse, and then that obese mouse suddenly is able to lose weight, think about that for a second. And the opposite has been true. They've taken an obese mouse poop and transplanted it into a healthy mouse, and that healthy mouse started gaining weight. Didn't change the diet. Didn't change the diet. Wait, my joke with Dr. Gundy, I'm going to open a supermodel fecal transplant clinic. Listen, I would imagine there are famous people right now that are getting fecal transplants from like younger people. It's going to happen, you guys. Now that's not the way that it's FDA cleared, but that's not what it's cleared. It's not cleared for that. It's not cleared for that. So in other words, if you really want to get your microbiome healthy, stop counting calories, right? Stop counting the amount of protein. Count the number of fruits and vegetables per week. Aim between 20 and 30 fruits and vegetables. With just this, I'm getting 5 or 6 different nuts every day. Just this alone. So set it up. Set up something to where it becomes like easy. You don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to think about like, what am I gonna buy at the grocery store to make sure that I get 20 or 30 different types of plant-based foods. Set something up like that and do it slowly. You know, you don't want to like, all of a sudden you're going to be like, every day now I'm going to have 5 or 6 different types of nuts. Start slowly. Start with a nut at a time, right? You got to make sure that your body can handle it if your microbiome is screwed up. Okay, so you're going to aim between 20 and 30 different kinds. But there is this big connection, I want to say, between the gut and the brain. And it's also true in the studies that they've done with depressed people, where they've taken, you know, they've done a fecal transplant, and it's called FMT, fecal microbial transplant. And they've taken they've done a transplant for people. In fact, there was a Netflix documentary recently, I forgot what it was called, but there was a Netflix documentary, oh yeah, it was called Hack Your Health, where they did a fecal microbial transplant. One of the participants, she had just decimated her microbiome. So she was unable to really eat anything. I think she could eat like 5 things. It was quite sad. And she was having, she was doing this transplant where she was putting fecal matter, she's doing it herself, I would not recommend this at home, into capsules, and taking a capsule that would bypass everything, an acid-resistant capsule, would get down and populate her gut from her brother. And she was using her brother as a donor. And her brother had acne, hormonal acne, when he went through puberty. And all of a sudden, this young woman started getting severe acne. So she stopped using her brother as a donor and started using her boyfriend instead. And it was a gross process. If I'm going to be honest, it was a gross process that involved a freezer and a blender and capsules that were, you know, imagine what you think it would be of you trying to do your own, you know, do a donor of fecal matter, which is poop, into a capsule that you're going to consume. It's not something you want to try at home. But that said, it was fascinating in that when she switched over to her boyfriend's, poop as a donor, her boyfriend suffered from depression. And this young woman had never had depressive thoughts in her life. And yet when she did that transplant, all of a sudden she started having depressive symptoms. I find that fascinating. I find that fascinating. Don't you guys find that like, what? It's so tied into the whole workings. I know. Crop flare just went, oh my God. Oh my God is right. So if you can think about that, if by transplanting somebody else's poop into your gut is going to change your health insofar as depressive thoughts, anxiety, weight gain, illnesses, inflammation in the body, all of that stuff. Yeah, it was a fascinating documentary, you guys. I think it was on Netflix. Really, really, really interesting stuff. So I make sure that you check that out. Currently, right now, it's called Hack Your Health. I just saw it. It's called Hack Your Health. Currently, right now, the fecal microbial transplants are FDA approved, but it's not approved for like, you know, I want to take the fecal matter of a 16-year-old and put it inside me. No, but it is approved for C. diff, right? And that's that when bacteria inflames the colon and causes extreme diarrhea. So fecal transplants are FDA cleared for that. But that said, they can treat C. diff, obesity, cirrhosis, autism, cancer, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, irritable bowel syndrome, diabetes, arthritis, Parkinson's disease, colitis, Alzheimer's disease, hepatitis, dermatitis, and drum roll, aging. Yes, the science is headed in that direction. The science is headed in that direction, which I think is fascinating. So what can you do right now? What can you do right now? We're going to get into it. The good news, I'll give you the good news. Your microbiome can respond within 24 hours of you eating. So when you take that next bite, you have a choice of if you're going to support your microbiome or not, because it responds within 24 hours. So you can start now. You don't have to wait to get tested. What do you think of coffee enemas? No. Well, if you think about that, if you've got it's great in terms of weight loss if you're not destroying those bacteria that are associated with making you feel full or with inflammation. This is what this one does. This probiotic literally targets that type of bacteria in the gut associated with holding on to weight and with inflammation and with feeling full. That's what this one does, okay? But think about that if you're doing a coffee enema and all of that stuff is coming out, Yes, it's going to help because caffeine will act as like a diuretic. So it's gonna make your tummy really flat. You're also gonna like take out a lot of that good bacteria in the process. Don't do it. Don't do it, because in the long run, a diverse microbiome is gonna help with healthy weight management far more than doing a coffee enema. Does that make sense? Okay, so what can we do now? Start with a high fiber plant-based diet. Eat as many high fiber plants as possible. And every day, you might have to work up to that, but every day, don't just have broccoli every day, right? Broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cucumbers, tomatoes, as many different types as you can. As many different types as you can. And start recognizing once you eat, 2 or 3 hours later, I want you to start recognizing how's your stomach feel after that. You got to really be in tune with it. I have a lot of clients that like, you know, papaya, great. Anything like that. Can you cook the veggies? Yes, you can cook the veggies. The less amount of cooking, the better. That's why I always have raw nuts, not toasted, not salted, not whatever. Raw nuts are part of my, nuts and seeds are part of my daily. I'll walk past this thing that's on my kitchen counter and grab them throughout the day. When you cook vegetables to death, you're not going to get as diverse microbiome. Remember that it's a couple different things. Bugs live on your plants that you eat, so you'll get bugs from your plants. But also you want the fiber to be able to get down to that colon to where you can actually feed the good bugs that you have in your colon, your microbiome. So we need the fiber to get down here. And certain bugs like certain types of fiber. So diversify what you're eating. Real, whole food vegetables and fruits. Okay? And then look at what happens 2 or 3 hours afterwards. If you're crashing, if you don't feel good. I have a lot of clients that like, they say, you know, around 4 o'clock, I'm just like, my God, my voice. I automatically say, what'd you eat around 1? What'd you eat around 1 o'clock? You know, if you're feeling like shit around 4, what'd you eat around 1 o'clock? That maybe spiked your glucose, crashed it, or what was not agreeing with your microbiome. And then, so I try to, so the goal is not only as many as you can, but aim for at least 20 to 30 different types throughout the week. Crowd out the bad. If you can add in this, and I teach this all the time with my clients. By the way, my coaching services for this month only are still half off. And so just DM me the word coaching. It's in July. I have to move those prices back up again, but they're still half off. And I just wanted to say, like, there's so many of my clients that they come to me and they're like, they think that they're eating well. And they're eating a lot of processed foods. And then they're not eating, you know, a lot of diverse vegetables. And what I teach a lot of is how to crowd out the shit, the crap. How to crowd out all of this horrible processed stuff that we are eating is by adding, just aim. Because if you think like, oh, I can't have that anymore. I can't have processed food. I can't have artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, by the way, horrible for microbiome. Horrible, horrible. You're better off eating sugar than you are. Do super greens count? Yeah, if they're coming from like my AG1 that I use, sometimes after lunch, after I've eaten all the vegetables I can, because I couldn't get enough, I'll mix in a little bit of AG1 and take all of my vitamins with my AG1. Those greens do count because they're coming from they're coming from real plants, right? So super greens do count, but I want you to be careful, Lisa, that when you're doing that, you're making it taste good, right? And you're downing it. Just make sure that you're doing that after you have already had a lot of fiber, because it's super greens. It's still processed, right? They come from real plants, but they're still dehydrating them. They're still breaking them down. They're still chopping up the fiber, right? So that it gets into a powder form. We want that fiber to be able to still make it all the way down here in as big a form as we possibly can. And the way to do that more effectively is through whole foods, a diverse amount of vegetables that are as cooked as little as possible. Now that doesn't mean that you can't cook your vegetables. I cook vegetables all the time, but like when I do a stir fry, the vegetables are still a tiny bit crunchy. Doesn't mean that you can't, like, any way you can get the vegetables in, get them in, okay? But make sure too that when you're doing that, when you start adding in all of these, I love chlorophyll, by the way, craft say, when you're adding in all of these vegetables that have all of the high fiber content, make sure that you are checking with the EWG.org and you're finding out if those particular plants need to be organic, because what you don't want to do is consume a lot of plants that are covered in pesticides and herbicides that are wiping out your microbiome, right? That makes sense, right? So there's a list of like the clean 15, those 15 fruits and vegetables that are commercially farmed, but that the pesticides and herbicides are not taken up into the meat of the plant, because there's no amount of washing that can wash off some of the pesticides and herbicides if they're taken up into the root of the plant. What was the probiotics again, please? This is my Probiotic Lean. This is my product. And this product literally, I'll just read what it says on the back of the thing. Hold on one second. Oh, you know what? I have it in here. 1 second. Yeah. So this is, my God, let me see if I can say this because of it's a lot to pronounce. Bifidobacterium animalis, 25 milligram capsule. Bifidobacterium animalis. This is lactose B420. It's 10 billion CFUs. So it's in again, you guys, there's a lot of people taking dead bugs. A lot of people wasting money thinking that they're doing something good for their body, and though you're just ingesting dead bugs, you're wasting money. You're wasting time. You're wasting time that you could be devoting to your health. So if your probiotic does not come in the refrigerated section, it needs to have a blister pack that is vacuum sealed. These are live bugs in here. And it needs to have a capsule that can bypass the stomach acid, right? So let me just read you a little bit about this. So this particular strain, and again, you can either go on my linked tree. You'll see a link in my linked tree that will say supplements, my healthy aging supplements. And the reason why I designed these is because I was tired of taking crap that were on the supermarket shelves. I'm really careful about what I put in my body, and I didn't want to waste my money, and I didn't want heavy metals and toxins and everything else that we find in our supplements today. And I wanted to make sure that I was having effective, or I'll put it back up, it's Probiotic Lean. You can find this from my linked tree on my profile, on my main profile, and you'll see supplements. You can also, when I post this, which I'm gonna post right afterwards, just comment the word supplements, and it will send you a DM automatically that will give you a link to that product, to the whole Shopify page, okay? But this is the one that I put all of my weight loss clients on, and I'm gonna tell you just a little bit about this. So this particular strain has been shown to assist with healthy body composition by improving gut barrier function, supporting the supporting the reduction of body fat mass, so it reduces body fat mass and promotes less calorie consumption. And that is working with those bacteria in your gut that make you feel full, right? That cause inflammation, that make it difficult for you to lose weight. We isolated it in this particular product specifically for my weight loss clients, and it's called Probiotic Lean. So that's what I have. But if you are on a probiotic, you have to make sure it's either in the refrigerated section or it's in a blister pack, because otherwise you're just ingesting dead bugs. Okay, so you can take a probiotic, especially if you've just decimated your microbiome with antibiotics. If you've been cold and they put you on an antibiotic, you got to get on a probiotic, right? You got to make sure that you're repopulating those good bugs. And it's got to be in a capsule that can make it all the way down to your colon, because that's where it needs to be. And Red Wing 3324, don't comment here supplement. When I post this to my main feed, which I'm going to post right after this, make a comment there that says supplements, and it'll automatically send you a DM, okay? So the next thing that you could do, so we said you want to eat 20 to 30 different types of fruits and vegetables a week, different types. That's going to help to diversify the microbiome. You want to take a probiotic, okay? That was just my particular one. You want to eat fermented foods. This is kimchi. Tomorrow, you guys, on Instagram Live, I'm going to be making homemade sauerkraut. So I'm going to be fermenting cabbage. It's super easy to do. Join me tomorrow at 12, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. Because I'm getting really tired of like having to buy a bunch of stuff. But fermented foods like pickles, kombucha, this is a raw kombucha, miso, sauerkraut, kimchi. These are kimchi pickles. I love. And that's all in the refrigerated section, okay? So this is very different than you going to buy a jar of pickles that are sitting in vinegar. That's not what I'm talking about. Oops, I just spilled this on my thing. That's not fermented food, okay? That's just, you know, pickled. Pickled is different than fermented. Pickled is different than fermented. So you want to eat fermented foods like pickles, kombucha, miso, sauerkraut, kimchi. They can help boost that gut microbiome. And what they do is they create a healthier mix of all the good bugs. So you get healthier mix of that, but it also strengthens the wall where all of that, the mesh is, right? Where that whole barrier is. It strengthens that gut barrier. So let's see. Tomorrow I'm going to be making, like I said, easy fermented cabbage. And you can do a brine and ferment vegetables. So I'll see what else I'm going to do. So that'll be tomorrow. Is there any other questions? I think we're just right on time. I'm going to scroll back and see if there was any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to see you. You're awesome. Oh, Lisa, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you guys learned something. And listen, if you guys join me tomorrow, I'm talking and I'm scrolling at the same time. Redrick said, how do I get it? You get my supplements, either the Fiber Lean, which when we're talking about gut health, there's 3 products. When we're only talking about gut, not weight loss, but just gut health. Fiber Lean, the Probiotic Lean, and the Easy Digest. Those 3 products are really great. The Easy Digest is more for those symptoms. Remember the symptoms that we talked about of your gut being off? The Easy Digest that I have helps with those symptoms. But to treat gut health, you're looking at fiber, you're looking at probiotic, you're looking at fermented foods, that kind of stuff. Okay, everybody, that's all I got. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Again, when I post this to my main feed, you could just comment, oh, sourdough, kefir, tempeh, yes, creative eye candy, yes, that is all good. Tomorrow, I'm here every Saturday and Sunday at 12. Thank you, I just got back. Looking forward to tomorrow, yay, okay. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. We are going to make homemade sauerkraut, fermented cabbage. Okay, have a good rest of your day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.